Latin Alive, Lesson 7, Culture. Today, we're going to learn about the history of the city of Rome. So, Rome was believed to be founded around 753 BC by Romulus, which is a legend, so they don't know if it actually happened. And there was a kingdom with 7 kings, and then the Republic after that. And it grew into a massive empire, and the Forum and the Colosseum are central to Rome. Those are some quick facts. So, the geography of Rome. So Rome is built on 7 hills east of the Tiber River, that is listed below, and its defensive advantages is that hills were used for protection, and then the river was used for trade and water, and it was nearby sea access. So Rome was a perfect place to build a city that was defendable against other enemies, and they also had room for trade, which flourished the city and made it very profitable. And it was also near marshy areas that drained early, so like the Colloquium Maxima is the sewer system, and this was great engineering by the Romans, and it just shows their intelligence. So the periods of Roman history, there are 3. So they had the kingdom, which was 7 kings. It was built with early temples and walls, and then the Republic took over in 509 BC, and they overthrew the monarchy. They had consuls, a senate, and the expansion across Italy and Mediterranean, and then it became the largest empire in the world in around 27 BC through 476 AD. And Augustus was the first emperor, and its peak size was during this time of the empire, and Pax Romana means Roman peace, and it had massive building projects. So Rome was very large, and it grew from a very small village to a city of over 1 million people by the imperial peak. And that might not seem like a lot of people, especially compared to now with cities like New York City, but during this time, 1 million people in a city was extremely large. So the Roman baths. They were used for hygiene, but they were mainly social, business, and leisure activities. So some examples of the baths are the baths of Caracalla in Rome. They're massive, and they could hold over 1,600 bathers. They included gardens, art, and libraries. So here are some pictures of Roman baths. So the first is an actual picture of a Roman bath today. And then the one on the right is what a Roman bath would have looked like during the time period. So people used it for hygiene and they did bathe, but it was more for social activities than anything else. The Roman baths had different rooms that bathers would go into. So they started off in the changing room, the Potitium, and then they went to the Tepidarium, which is the warm room, and it allowed them to acclimate and relax. Then the Caldarium is the hot room, and it was, hot bath, plunge, steam, and it was a sweat out of impurities. They scraped skin with a strigil, which is a curved tool that goes on the skin using olive oil to clean. And then they went into the Frigidarium, which is a cold room, and it was a cold plunge, so you went from warm to hot to cold. And then after this, they would go into more of a normal pool or average temperature. So you went from warm to very extremes, and then back to normal. So now the Forum of Rome. So we've talked about forums in this course before, but the Forum of Rome, the city, was the central public space for politics, commerce, religion, trials, and they had very popular temples like the Temple of Saturn and Vestal Virgins, basilicas, arches, and they also had the Senate House, or the Curia, and the Rostra, which is where speakers spoke from. But the Forum of Rome was really what started the different forums in other cities. So everything from Rome spread to the other cities in the empire. So thank you for listening. Wale for now. See you next lesson.